Guys, welcome back to another video. English reading is due tomorrow, so let's read some more Anthropocene. It's basically a book where John Green reviews concepts such as Diet Dr. Pepper. Yesterday he gave Diet Dr. Pepper a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Very interesting. Go check it out. And today we're reading about Halley's Comet. Right here. Let's give it a go. One of the enduring mysteries of Halley's Comet is that nobody knows how to spell its name. As the comet is named for an astronomer who spelled his own surname variously as Halley, Halley, and Hawley. We think language moves around a lot these days with the emergence of emojis and the shifting meanings of words, like literally, but at least we know how to spell our own names. I'm going to call it Halley's Comet, with apologies to the Hollies and the Haleys among us. It's the only periodic comet that can regularly be seen from Earth by the naked eye. Halley's Comet takes between 74 and 79 years to complete its highly elliptical orbit around the sun. So once in a good human lifetime, Halley brightens in the night sky for several weeks. Or twice in a human lifetime if you schedule things well. The American writer Mark Twain, for instance, was born as the comet blazed above the Missouri sky. 74 years later, he wrote, I came in with Halley's Comet in 1835. It is coming again next year, and I expect to go out with it. He did, dying in the 1910. In 1910, as Halley reappeared. Twain had hell of a gift for narrative structure, especially when it came to a memoir. 76 years later, the comet returned in the late winter of 1986. I was 8. The apparition of the comet was, to the quote of Wikipedia, the least favorable on the record. The comet much farther from Earth than usual. The comet's distance, combined with the tremendous growth of artificial light, meant that in many places, Halley was invisible to the naked eye. I was living in Orlando, Florida, a town that throws a lot of light up at the night sky. But on Halley's brightest weekend, my dad and I drove up to the Ocala National Forest, where our family owned a little cabin. At the tail end of what I consider to be one of the best days of my life, I saw the comet through my dad's birding binoculars. Humanity may have known that Halley was a repeating comet thousands of years ago. There is a reference in the Talmud to a star that appears once in 70 years that makes the captains of ships err. But back then, it was common for humans to forget that over time, what they had already learned. Maybe not only back then, come to think of it. At any rate, Edmund Halley noticed that the 1682 comet he observed seemed to have a similar orbit to comets that had been reported in 1607 and 1531. 14 years later, Halley was still thinking about the comet, writing Isaac Newton. I am more and more confirmed that we have seen that comet now 3 times since the year 1531. Halley then predicted the comet would return in 1758. It did, and had been named for him ever since. Because we so often center history on the exploits and discoveries of individuals, it's easy to forget the broad systems and historical forces drive shifts in human understanding. While it's true, for example, that Halley correctly predicted the comet's return, his colleague and contemporary, Robert Hooke had already expressed a very new opinion that some comets might be reoccurring. Even putting aside the Talmud's possible awareness of periodic comets, other skygazers were beginning to have similar ideas around the same time. 17th century Europe, with not just Newton and Hooke, but also Boyle and Galileo, and Gascoigne and Pascal, saw so many important scientific and mathematical breakthroughs, not because the people born in that time and place happened to be unusually smart, but because the analytic system of scientific revolution was emerging, and because institutions like the Royal Society allowed well-educated elites to learn from one another more efficiently. And also because Europe was suddenly and unprecedentedly rich. It's no coincidence that the specific scientific revolution in Britain coincided with the rise of British participation in the Atlantic slave trade and the growing wealth being extracted from colonies and enslaved labor. We must then try to remember Halley in context, not as a singular genius who emerged from a family of soap boilers to discover a comet of us, a bubble on the tide of empire, as Robert Penn Warren memorably put it. That noted, Halley was brilliant. Here's one example of his use of lateral thinking. As discussed in John and Mary Gibbons' book, Out of the Shadow of a Giant, when asked to work out the acreage of land in every English county, Halley took a large map of England and cut out the largest complete circle he found on the map. The circle equated to 69.33 miles in diameter. He then weighed both the circle and the complete map, concluding that since the map weighed 4 times more than the circle, the area of England was 4 times the area of the circle. The result was only 1% off from the contemporary calculations. Halley's polymathic curiosity makes his list of accomplishments read like they're out of a Jules Verne novel. He invented a kind of diving bell to go hunting for treasure in a sunken ship. He developed an early magnetic compass and made many important insights about Earth's magnetic field. His writing on Earth's hydrological cycle was tremendously influential. He translated the Arab astronomer Al-Battani 10th century observations about eclipses, using Al-Battani's work to establish that the moon's orbit was speeding up. And he developed the first actuarial table, paving the way for the emergence of life insurance. Halley also personally funded the publication of Newton's 3-volume Principia, because England's leading scientific institution, the Royal Society, actually spent all of its publishing budget on a history of fish, according to historian Julie Wakefield. Halley immediately understood the significance of the Principia, which is considered among the most important books in the history of science. Now we are truly admitted as the table guests of the gods, Halley said in the book. No longer does error oppress doubtful mankind with its darkness. Of course, Halley's ideas didn't always hold up. Error still oppressed doubtful humankind, and still does. For example, partly based on Newton's incorrect calculations of the moon's density, Halley argued that there was a second Earth inside our Earth with its own atmosphere and possibly its own inhabitants. By the time Halley's Comet showed up in 1986, the scientific revolution's approach to knowledge building had proven so successful that even third graders like me knew about the layers of the Earth. That day, in the Ocala National Forest, my dad and I made a bench by nailing 2x4s to sections of a tree trunk. It wasn't particularly challenging carpentry, but in my memory at least, it took most of the day. We started a fire, cooked some hot dogs, and waited for it to get properly dark, where as dark as Central Florida got in 1986. I don't know how to explain to you how important that bench was to me. How much it mattered that my dad and I made something together. But that night, we sat next to each other on our bench, which just barely fit the two of us. We passed the binoculars back and forth, looking at Halley's Comet, a white smudge in the blue-black sky. My parents sold the cabin almost 20 years ago, but not long before they did, I spent a weekend there with Sarah. We had just started dating. I walked her down to the bench, which was still there. Its fat legs were termite-ridden, and the 2x4s were warped, but still held our weight. Halley's Comet is not a monolithic, spherical mini-planet flying through space, as I imagined it to be. Instead, it is many rocks that have coalesced into peanut-shaped mass. A dirty snowball, as astronomer Fred Whipple put it. In total, Halley's dirty snowball of a nucleus is 9 miles long and 5 miles wide, but its tail of ionized gas and dust particles can extend even more than 60 million miles through space. In 837 CE, when the comet was much closer to Earth than usual, its tail stretched across more than half our sky. In 1910, as Mark Twain lay dying, Earth actually passed through the comet's tail. People brought gas masks and anti-comet umbrellas to protect against the gases. In fact, though, Halley poses no threat to us. It is approximately the same size as the object that struck Earth 60 million years ago, leading to the extinction of dinosaurs and many other species. But it's not on a collision course with Earth. As noted, Halley's Comet will be more than 5 times closer to Earth in 2061 than it was in 1986. It'll be brighter in the night sky than Jupiter or any star. I'll be 83 if I'm lucky. When you measure time in Halley's rather than years, history starts to look different. As the comet visited us in 1986, my dad brought home a personal computer, the first in our neighborhood. 1 Halley later, the first movie adaptation of Frankenstein was released. The Halley before that, Charles Darwin was aboard the HMS Beagle. The Halley before that, the United States wasn't a country. A Halley before that, Louis XIV, which I think is the 14th, if I could be wrong, ruled France. Put it another way, in 2021, we are 5 human lifetimes removed from the building of the Taj Mahal, 2 lifetimes removed from the abolishment of slavery in the United States. History, like human life, is one incredibly fast and agonizingly slow. Very little of the future is predictable. That uncertainty terrifies me, just as it has terrified those before me. As John Gribben and Mary Gribben wrote, comets were the archetypical, unpredictable phenomenon, appearing entirely without warning, rousing superstitious awe in the 18th century to even greater extent than eclipses. Of course, we still know almost nothing about what's coming, neither for us as individuals nor for us as a species. Perhaps that's why I find it so comforting that we know when Halley will return, and that it will return, whether we're here to see it or not. I will give Halley's Comet 4.5 stars. Better than Dr. Pepper, I think. Dr. Pepper got 4 stars. What do you guys think of that, guys? Haley's Comet. When is the next one coming? I'm not really sure, but hopefully you get to see it soon. Highly recommend checking out this book. It's fire. I like reading it to you guys because it's like short stories that aren't really related to each other, so I don't feel like I'm wasting your guys' time as much as when I was reading Just Mercy, where I was just reading to you guys like the middle of the book, and it's just like you guys have no context of what's going on. But these are really short. It's easy for me to read because it's short, and you guys don't need any context. You can just hop right in. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll be reading some more tomorrow. It's due tomorrow, so I'm gonna be like speed running the rest of the book, or have to read about like 6 more of these chapters. But yeah, wish me luck, guys. I'm going to sleep. Bye.